This next story that we're about to get into is wild. And I mean wild, wild. There were a couple of you, I don't know if you guys all decided to do this together, but there were a couple of you that emailed me this story. When I first saw it, I was like, there's no way this is true. So it took me a while. I wanted to do a little bit of digging and see, is this real? And believe it or not, it's actually real. It appears that in Louisville, Kentucky, the hospitals have been dumping patients. And I don't mean dropping them off at their house or their apartment. I mean dumping the patients. You see this? I'll make this bigger. Because it's local news, I can't play the video because I'll get copyright. But you see this picture, right? This is a patient dumped on the side of the road. Reports of hospitals dumping patients in downtown Louisville. Jesus Christ. I really couldn't believe this at first. And I'll make this larger because I don't know if it'll let me make it larger. The font is so small. Okay. This story began December 1st at 5 p.m. with a phone call to our newsroom from a horrified university hospital employee. The employee claimed security had just wheeled an elderly woman all the way out to the corner of Hancock and Ali, just off hospital property, dumped the woman out of the wheelchair on the sidewalk and left. Hospitals. I've been to Louisville, Kentucky. Louisville probably had one of the cleanest like downtowns I've seen, like out of the cities that I've been to. But it was also very clear that there was a section of Louisville that was very poor. You see that like coming into the city. And this to me, let me go on. Let me go on. This story just drove me crazy. Minutes later, we shot video of her still in her soiled hospital gown and slippers, breathing hard under a blanket placed over her in 36-degree weather. Her stuff was in a bag next to her. So just keep in mind, it does snow in Kentucky. It's in the mountains. Louisville's in the mountains, like, or the hills, excuse me. They call them the hills. Like, this is insane. So essentially, you just have a hospital van or ambulance just opening up the door and just dumping patients off on the sidewalk. This sounds like a movie. The caller claimed she saw this a lot. So I started watching, and on December 16th at 7 p.m., 35 degrees outside, I recorded 3 security officers or guards surrounding an elderly woman with a walker and slowly escorting her out of the emergency room. She couldn't move fast. It took several minutes to make it all the way to the same corner of Hancock and Ali. After they had her across the street off the hospital property, the security guards turned around and went back. When they cleared, I caught up to her. She said she couldn't breathe. They told me I would not stay on the premises. Were you there as a patient? I asked. I needed to be a patient because I'm sick, she said. What is wrong with you? I asked. I've got COPD. I got diabetes. So they won't treat you. The doctor told me for 1 minute. And who told you what? Or excuse me, and told you what? That I had to leave. What was the reason they gave? He didn't give me a reason. She told me she was homeless. What this sounds like to me is that basically they're dumping patients or refusing not to treat patients that don't have health insurance. That's what it sounds like. It goes on to say, I've got to go because I'm hurting. I'm in pain. Matthew Harbour and his mother claimed a similar story. They met us in front of Wayside Christian Mission in the spot where they said he was dumped in October. If anybody is watching and you live in Louisville or in the Louisville area and you knew about this, let me know in the chat, because this is crazy. I was in a car crash, Matthew said. I completely shattered my hip and pelvis. I got like 30 some screws. They said we can't find a rehab right now, Linda Harbour said. She said when Norton Hospital told her they had a room lined up for Matthew at Wayside, she checked it out. I called Wayside just to confirm, and they said, no, we can't do that. We can't, Linda said. We have beds and help find jobs, but we don't take medically needy people. We don't do that. What the hell do they mean by medically needy people? It's a hospital. She said she then had a conference call with the hospital staff. The social worker said, we're going to take him to a shelter. Which one? And they said, Wayside Christian Mission. And I said, well, I know that's not true because I called them and they don't take them. Then the social worker said, that's history. We'll think of something else. Linda said the next day, her son was unloaded from a transport vehicle on the curb in the rain on Jackson Street in front of Wayside. This is criminal. You can't stay here. We can't treat you. You're medically needy. So we're just going to drop you off on the sidewalk. Jeez Louise. I thought they've dumped my son. My garbage I have to put out on the curb. That's how they dumped my son, Linda said, like garbage. Linda said she was in no shape to care for him at home. She died after the interview with us. They put all their stuff on the sidewalk over there, dump them off on the sidewalk, get back in their vehicle, and get out here just as fast as they can. Now, that's coming from a Wayside staffer, Perry Lane. Lane helped Matthew out of the rain that day and said he witnessed the same kind of thing dozens of times a year from hospitals as far away as Eastern Kentucky. This is Mitch McConnell and Rand Paul's state, no? Where are they on this matter? Huh. He said they're often lied to about the medical treatment they'll receive at the shelter. What's the worst physical shape you've seen someone who was dumped? I asked. This guy said, this guy here was pretty bad, Lane said, mentioning Matthew. He was paralyzed. People that can't walk, totally reliant on a wheelchair. Hospitals take them out, put them in a wheelchair, throw all their stuff on the street, and take off. Wayside's chief operating officer, Nina Mosley, told me it's not uncommon. She said they're not trained medically, and sometimes they take patients right back to the hospitals. How can you dump people? Lane said, these are human beings. How can you just dump them and leave them? It doesn't make any sense to me. It's inhumane, man. We detailed these incidents with dates and times and sent them to both Norton and University hospitals. Norton Healthcare Senior Vice President Renee Murphy responded in an emailed statement. In order to safeguard the privacy of patients and in compliance with HIPAA, we are not permitted to discuss specifics regarding a patient's case. With that being said, there are several details to this case that may not have been communicated to you by the family. As Mr. Harbour has not signed a HIPAA release of information form, which authorizes us to speak to you about his care, we will not be able to share those details with you. That's from Norton Healthcare. And University Hospital Public Relations Director David MacArthur replied in an emailed statement, U of L Health goes through extraordinary efforts to ensure all people that seek medical assistance are treated with compassionate, innovative, patient-centered care. Is it compassionate to dump people off on the sidewalk? What is heartbreaking for U of L Health staff is that we often encounter situations where patients need assistance beyond medical care. So they just drop you off. As the community safety net hospital, the challenges are particularly even more acute when providing health care to the unhoused population of Metro Louisville. As a healthcare provider, we treat medical conditions, but some of our patients need much more. Our team routinely offers additional resources to assist with housing, transportation, and ongoing care. It is part of their training and our expectations. However, community resources are limited, and even when they are available, many individuals that may benefit from those resources still refuse assistance. Still doesn't explain to me why you are dumping people on the sidewalk. That still has not been explained. Regardless of U of L Health recognizes and complies with the Emergency Medical Treatment and Labor Act, every individual presenting to any of our emergency departments is medically screened. If they have an emergency medical condition, they are treated, regardless of insurance or ability to pay. In response to your question, based on the location and the uniforms of the security personnel in the screenshots from December 16th, they appear to be working on behalf of the U of L hospital. Unfortunately, the images that were provided by Wave do not reveal enough information to track down details or identify whether the individuals on either day sought care from any of our team. Seriously? The Emergency Medical Treatment and Labor Act was passed in 1986 as a federal anti-dumping law. It mandates patients who present to a hospital emergency department must undergo an appropriate medical screening examination by a physician to determine whether they have an emergency medical condition. If they do, they must be stabilized and treated, and an appropriate transfer may take place to another facility with adequate capabilities. Does the transfer require you dumping them on the ground and throwing their clothes on the side of the street? It seems like to me, this transfer, the piece that did not happen, is that they're supposed to remove the patient from the van and bring them into the facility with their belongings, not just dumping them on the street like a piece of trash. This is cruelty and abuse, especially for someone who was paralyzed. If they do, they must be stabilized and treated. An appropriate transfer may take place to another facility with adequate capabilities. Juries take the obligation to treat emergency patients very, very seriously, says Hans Popp. Popp knows that firsthand. He won a $2.3 million patient dumping verdict, most of that in punitive damages after his client, who was coming to a Lexington hospital by ambulance with a cardiac emergency, was turned away and directed to another hospital. Juries don't like to punish hospitals. There aren't many verdicts in Kentucky history favoring plaintiffs in alleged patient dumping cases. Isn't that a damn shame? In one of them, a $1.5 million verdict was awarded in Fayette County to a difficult patient with a history of ER visits, dumped by a hospital, rolled outside in a wheelchair with taxi fare, and hours later, the man was dead of an untreated ulcer. After being reversed on appeal, another jury socked the hospital for $1.445 million. What that tells you is if a jury hears a case and they believe there has been a violation where a patient has been dumped or abandoned by the hospital, they get really upset. It's like, I'm worthless, man, says Matthew. We're throwaway. We're garbage, you know? Pass this story on to as many people possible. I don't think a lot of people know about this story. Like I said, if it wasn't for you guys sent this story to me. That's how I found out about it. But other than that, I would have never known. And one last part here. I was contacted by a law enforcement officer who worked off duty at a university hospital who said she emailed the U of L Health CEO Tom Miller on March 1st about this issue and what she was witnessing. She said she was then informed she would no longer be working there. You see how that works? She complained about it and now she's gone. She lost her job. I asked U of L about that. They said the officer was concerned about the same things they are, and they're collaborating to increase community resources for the at-risk populations. As for the officer being let go after the March email, U of L said she was employed by a third-party security service. This is happening right here in the United States. Where are the politicians in reference to this? Where are all these people? Where's Mitch McConnell? Where's Rand Paul? This is how they treat people in this country. That is disturbing. Again, for those of you just joining, I'll go back up to the top of the article. That's freaking crazy. In Louisville, Kentucky, some hospitals are dumping patients on the side of the street. What a mess.